Talk to me about stretch-mediated hypertrophy. I love this is one of the things that I've gleaned from your content that I've found to be infinitely valuable. I mean, I try to train as much as I can through always a full range of motion, but then I do, I guess, what's called lengthened partials at the end of my sets.
Good.
And I've seen some pretty significant gains.
Oh, excellent.
In so doing. Yeah.
My colleagues would love to hear that.
Yeah. But like unpack this for us, because I think it's so interesting and counterintuitive, because I feel like, for example, just to use like a bicep curl as an example, like I think most of us are kind of, it's intuitive to think that you're getting most of the bang for your buck in the most contracted portion
of the muscle contraction after all.
Yeah. Exactly.
Flex your muscle. I don't say extend your muscle. It's nonsense. Yeah. Stretch mediated hypertrophy is a term that we used to use a lot, and I'm weaning myself away from on very, very curmudgeon-y scientific grounds. But that's what I got to do. So the actual concept of stretch-mediated hypertrophy means that you have to have the muscle at a stretch, at least what is on biomechanical grounds considered a stretch from the scientific approach, or at the very least on experiential grounds of like, whoa, this is a stretch. Like if you get in a calf raise machine and you get real deep into that stretch, so someone's like, are you stretching? You're like, bro, get out of my face. Yes. Right? That actually has a hypertrophic benefit. It does grow muscle to stretch under load, 100%. We know this because of a few older animal studies that, the conclusion, the external validity of animal studies is tough because you're not a bird with its wings stapled to weights in this position. Thank God. Every day I wake up, I thank God I'm not an exercise science bird. It's a tough life, but someone has to live it, I guess. That stretch-mediated hypertrophy has recently seen a lot of support from direct experimentation. One of my colleagues, Dr. Eric Helms, actually did this to himself and also was involved in the study design for the participants. And the study was, they basically have these weird boots that you put on, and you crank the boot, and it opens up your calf for you until you're in a painfully stretched position. And there you remain from memory, an hour at a time or something, multiple days a week. There is no lifting. There is no load of any kind that sits on your leg. It's just putting your calf into a crazy stretch. And from memory also, like if you don't feel like it's a stretch anymore, you're supposed to crank it even further, and it's got the notches, so it just stays in that position. Because after you stretch a little bit, a couple minutes later, you're like, all right, this sucks, but technically I don't even feel like I'm stretching anymore. You can go further.
Well, you're stretched.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And so that has shown remarkable muscle growth with no resistance training at all. The problem is, if you look at it, it's like the growth benefits of that kind of lifting, good God, that kind of stimulus, hours and hours per week, gives you comparable growth to what you would get with loaded calf raises from like a sum total of being in the machine doing the thing of like 5 minutes a week or something. I mean, can you imagine timing yourself 5 minutes on a calf raise? That's insane. I didn't even know how many sets that is. Like 10 sets? Mm-hmm. And so that provides evidence for two things. One, stretch-mediated hypertrophy is absolutely real. But two, it's not really efficient if you're just going to go by stretch alone. So when people say like, oh, like yoga or Pilates, it grows muscle, it does. But for the amount of time you're putting into it, not a ton. That's stretch-mediated hypertrophy. What kind of got put into that bin of ideas, because we just didn't know any better, is a related concept. And that concept is the degree of muscle length at which you apply external resistance. So if my biceps are stretched painfully and I just keep them painfully stretched, get a little bit of muscle growth. It works. That's stretch mediated. If I train my biceps from here to here, no stretch, but tension, like I have weights in my hand, it's really tough. That gives you some good hypertrophy. If you train your biceps through a full range of motion, we have many, many studies, not just on biceps, but on increasingly more muscles of the body, that a full range of motion beats a shortened partial, a partial in which the muscle never really gets a chance to lengthen to anywhere close to its normal physiological ability lengthen. Recently, there's been lots of research on this. Probably the foremost expert in the world on this is Dr. Milo Wolf, who's like 23 years old, but he has a PhD. How does that work? I don't know. I'm over here. I had no head of hair. I'm at least confident I have a PhD, and he's doing his thing. So
23, wow.
Unreal, right? And so he has shown in many of the studies he's sort of chaperoned himself and massive reviews of literature, because many labs around the world that are doing this, that, for example, in biceps, going from here to here alone in the lengthened component, like the bottom 1/3, actually grows more muscle than full range of motion. Because full range of motion is composed of sort of 2 parts, maybe 3 if you get real pedantic: bottom third, middle third, top third. It turns out that top third does grow muscle, but not as much as the middle third, and not as much still as the bottom third. So the deeper you are, the more lengthened your muscles are, to a point. When they're producing high tension, the more hypertrophy that you get. That means full range of motion training is awesome, but if you couple it with training that's focused on that bottom third, and that's called lengthened training, not stretch training, because here I'm lengthened, but I'm actually not stretching, because the bicep crosses the shoulder. To stretch, I'd have to pull it all the way back here. Now I feel a stretch. This, if I do bicep curls here, it's stretch and lengthened. Here, it's just lengthened, but no stretch. These two, at least as far as most literature is concerned, produce very similar levels of muscle growth. Because remember, the stretch stuff is cool, but you got to apply a stretch for a real long time. So what we thought was stretch-mediated hypertrophy doing most of the work in lifting weights has actually been stretch puts you into longer muscle lengths. And that longer muscle length, lengthened partials, lengthened bias, not stretch biased, is what seems to be doing the quote-unquote heavy lifting and providing a very uncharacteristically high degree of muscle growth for the effort that you're putting in. Now, how do you know you're in a lengthened position for the muscle? One of the easiest ways is just go through a full range of motion and get a ball or deep stretch. Then you get the benefits of stretch-mediated hypertrophy, even though that's not a ton because you'd have to stay in that position for a long time. You get amazing mobility and flexibility benefits, which are just awesome for basically everything. And if you chill down there for a bit, you get that lengthened bias, and that gives you lots of growth. And if you do some of your lifting through a full range of motion, just for life, for sport, for everything, you get a real total approach. And that's great. Like if you, let's say you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and you're only strong from here to here, but not here to here because you never practice here to here, it's kind of weird. So full range of motion is great for that. So if you have a core of full range of motion lifting and you supplement with a substantial amount of lifting that's designed to hit the muscle more at that lengthened position, then I think you're, as far as modern best practice and understanding is concerned, probably doing your best to enhance your muscle growth process.
So how, in a practical sense, how does one then integrate these learnings into their, day-to-day workouts? Because I'm assuming this could be applied to pretty much every lift.
Yeah, definitely. The lifts to which it cannot be applied are probably not great lifts. So for example, are you familiar with a dumbbell tricep kickback?
Yes.
It's like, this, right? So if you're, I'm not going to do this because I'll be on camera for the podcast and I can't talk into the mic. But if you're at that bottom position, there's actually gravity's not even pointing in the right direction. So when the muscle is stretched, you're not applying any tension. And when the tension is highest, the muscle is at its most shortened position. So that exercise, the tricep kickback done with a dumbbell, it will grow muscle. It's an effective exercise. But like, if you're talking about really tasty, fancy foods to eat because you're a real foodie, a White Castle cheeseburger technically tastes like something. I love it, but I'm not a foodie, so I can't tell. And you can't tell like a homeless person from a third world country, like they're like, "Can I have that White Castle burger?" You're like, "You don't want that, trust me. Let me get you a real steak." Like, what? It works, right? But there are levels to this. And so if you can take that exercise and instead do it with a cable, then you get a crap load of tension at the bottom and then actually not so much at the top. You go through a full range of motion, but every single rep is by design loaded more at that lengthened position. So there is something to choosing exercises that can be biased towards length position and staying a little bit away from, on average, exercises that just like, in order to bias length position, I don't know what you're going to have to do. Hip thrust, the glute hip thrust is an example of that. How do you get that to be length and biased? You need a special machine that no one's built before. So that's just out of contention. Does that mean the hip thrust is terrible? No, it's a great exercise. But if you do something like a front foot elevated lunge on a Smith machine, you get the stretch, you get the lengthened, you get the full ROM, you get the peak contraction, you get it all. And that's a real tier 1 type of exercise. So stepping back, to most folks are like, good God, what the hell is it? I mean, it's called the genius life, but my God, man, there's only so much throughput we have. I'll give a couple of really quick tips. One is if an exercise can be done with a fuller range of motion and a deeper stretch, and you're avoiding it, stop avoiding it and go through the stretch. I'm going to give you the perfect example, which you've seen dozens and dozens and dozens of times, I'm sure. We can go to LA Fitness right now, you and I, and I'll bet you damn good money, almost no one is squatting all the way down in their barbell squats or going all the way down into leg presses. Why? There's only one reason. You see, what trains the muscles well is sinking a squat all the way till your butt is touching your heels. But that doesn't grow the ego much because you need to remove so many plates off of the bar that no one's really looking at you anymore. The people who are still looking at you are looking at you in disapproval, like you're really weak, you should leave. And if you simply squat higher and stop not going so low, you don't get a stretch. Yeah, you don't grow as much muscle, but whatever, you get to put 3 plates on the squat bar. That one guy you've been kind of eyeing the whole time, he walks over, he's like, hey, I can give you some tips. Pretty soon you're dating, mission accomplished. So if an exercise allows you to get a deep stretch and a full range of motion, in most cases, don't abandon it. Dumbbell press, sink it, pull-ups, full stretch at the top, huge stretch, rows,
like almost like when you're doing pull-ups, like a dead hang.
Dead hang, absolutely. Why not, right? So rule 1, don't purposefully cut out the most beneficial, deepest part of that exercise. Rule 2, try to choose exercises in which the difficulty of the exercise, load-wise, fulcrum, lever-wise, is at least roughly similar throughout, and ideally really gnarly at the stretch. And maybe not choosing exercises as often that are really, really easy at the stretch, but like insanely hard at the peak contraction. That's not great. If you just follow those 3 rules, don't, in a full range of motion, don't skip the bottom. Try to pick exercises that really feel gnarly in that deep position, and try to stay a little bit away from exercises or modify ones that just don't let you get that super deep, gnarly stretch. Man, you can do all the science you want. There are way more nuanced particular things. If you keep quizzing me on more deep nuances, we're just going to be here for 9 hours. This is like my job. That most people are into that. Just those 3 tips. And really, if I had to put a fine point on it, just the 1 tip. Anytime you do an exercise and you feel like, man, if I went lower or deeper, I'm really uncomfortable, you shut up and you do it. You are not in the gym to be comfortable. You're in the gym for results. You want comfort. You got a remote control. You got a lazy boy with that tilt handle, and you're good. You're in the gym. You're here to challenge yourself. And look, you got in your car. You crammed through LA traffic. You might as well do the thing. And ensuring you have the best results from a perspective of muscle growth, from a perspective of making your joints and connective tissues robust, resilient against injury, strong, flexible, mobile. I mean, my God, it just, don't skip that bottom part.
Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.